everyone, my name is Steph. This is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to part A of the 16th weekly book steep for 2026. I say part A because this week I read a lot. Part of it was for a readathon, part of it was because I need to mood read my way through life at the minute and I just couldn't stick to a readathon TBR for an entire week, and nothing was for a project, and so therefore I do not want these videos to be excessively long. Otherwise this would probably be the only video you get this week, to be perfectly honest. So we're splitting it in two. This is my reading week from the 11th until the 17th of April. This particular part of my weekly wrap-up is going to be my Love in the Night wrap-up, which is a paranormal readathon that is hosted by my friends and I. At this stage, I don't believe that there is going to be a live show. There was just a lot of complications and clashes in terms of trying to get everyone available at the same time. So for that reason, this is my wrap-up. It's a little bit early because this is how my wrap-ups work. If a wrap-up ends on the weekend, I start it a little bit early and I finish it a little bit early so that I can film. And because this is a two-part video, you get two sets of stats. You get the overall stats and you're also going to get the stats for the particular books in this video. So I read 18 books this week. That included a page count of 4,228 pages. I had one reread, which was a children's picture book and is therefore not going to be mentioned here, and 0 DNFs and 0 books for projects. So apparently I forgot to do the Love in the Night reading stats, which I did not forget to do it in the second part. So for Love in the Night, I read 6 books. I read a total of 2,000 pages, 0 DNFs, 0 books for projects. So that does mean we are going to jump straight into reviews this week, which is pretty exciting. The first book that I read for the Love in the Night readathon was Devour Me by Emily Rath. I had an arc for this via NetGalley. This is the first book in her paranormal series. The series I think is called the Devour Me series, unless that name has changed recently. I don't think it has. And it is a why choose situation between a witch, a historian, and a wraith. So we have Verity, who is a historian. She is a grad student and she is supposed to be earning credits over the summer, except that falls through. And so her best friend suggests, well, why don't we see if there's another option? And the other option happens to be on this small island. As it so happens, her best friend is from that island and her best friend's uncle lives there and is in need of someone to work in his tea and tarot shop over the summer break because his niece is going overseas. Enter Jasper, who is, I think there's just maybe a 20-year, maybe it's slightly less than 20-year age gap between Jasper and Verity, and he is the local coven leader for the witches on this island, which is a secret. No one knows that they exist. The island has a long history of witches and this particular coven on the island, and there is a strong magic that protects the island. So anyone who comes to the island intending to do harm cannot actually physically get on the island. Jasper isn't thrilled that Verity is going to be working in his shop, mostly because his niece is running out on him to go to Germany to follow a guy, and he doesn't know Verity, and the island doesn't usually accept outsiders. This is made even worse when, for some reason, Verity is able to save Jasper from an attack by a wraith who is charged with killing him. The wraith is Dane, I think. I don't know if that's the correct way to pronounce it. Dane is currently in the service of somebody else who is holding his chains and basically directing him to kill particular people. Dane, on the other hand, recognizes immediately that both Jasper and Verity are important to him. I mean, he can't fight his wraith nature. His wraith nature means that he's going to try and kill them. But he also recognizes that he is, and I don't know if attraction is the right word to use in terms of what Dane feels, but essentially Dane is drawn very, very tightly to both of these characters. And the entire premise of the book is Dane, Jasper, and Verity trying to figure out, well, Dane already knows who's behind all of this, but Jasper and Verity trying to figure out who is coming after the witch coven on this island, and also trying to come to grips with the fact that Dane is just following them around like a lost puppy because he's found a loophole in his agreement with the person that he is working for, and I'm trying not to give spoilers here. So the premise of this book is really, really fun, and I was talking to Izzy about it actually just this morning. It's funny because I adore Emily Rath's writing, like I always do. I find her writing very easy to get into. This one I found a little bit harder. I felt like the first part of the book was quite difficult to get into. And I don't necessarily say that as a negative, because what I'm finding a lot with my favorite indie authors who are going trad, which is no shade on them, absolutely go your path, but from their indie books to their trad books, really, really difficult. And I don't know whether it's to do with the editing process, whether it's to do with the way that they're being asked to write their books, or if that has absolutely nothing to do with it. And this book just probably didn't hit the same mark as some of Emily Rath's other books. Like I actually don't know what it is about it, because the book itself was fine. It's still one of the better paranormal romance books that I read this week. But in terms of where it sits in sort of my Emily Rath kind of favorite books, it's sitting towards the bottom, because I would put, I mean, Jack's Race is always going to be first, but her historical and her fantasy romance, two subgenres of romance that I typically don't enjoy, higher than this one. The other thing is I was reading a very early copy, so I know that there could be more edits, and I will reread it when it's released because I want to see if there are some adjustments made to what I read. But yeah, it was an interesting experience because I enjoyed it, but I can also recognize that this is not the same level of Emily Rath writing that I've enjoyed in the past, and I don't know why that is, which is interesting. So please don't take that as a negative. That's 100% I want to read the finished product, because I've never read an Emily Rath arc, so I don't know where this is sitting in sort of the process at the moment. One thing I will say is that I did love the Wraith. The Wraith is great. Bring on more Wraith stories. It was really fun. And I hit quite a few of the prompts for the readathon. Then I read my most favourite book for the readathon, which is Dearly Departed by Pons, which comes out later this year. Again, paranormal romance. This one is an romance. It is basically a Hades and Persephone retelling, but make it queer. So in this world, the gods were given a forced retirement plan contract that they signed. And Hades has not moved on from that. In the centuries since that's happened, he has not been able to move on. He's currently working in a funeral home, and he has one other employee who works with him and puts up with his grumpy self. And then one day he gets really frustrated because some flowers are delivered from the local florist for an upcoming funeral that he disagrees with, and he goes over there to give the florist a piece of his mind. And then he meets Levi, who is sunshine personified. He absolutely loves and adores his flower shop. Hades, who goes by Hayden, is not someone that the town know very well. He's been there a long time, clearly, but people don't really know him, and they consider him mysterious. And so Levi is thrilled and also kind of awestruck, then also blown away by how much he is attracted to Hayden. And it's this kind of weird pull because they are very diametrically opposed in terms of personalities at the very start of this book. As we continue to go through the book, we find out that Hades is continually petitioning the fates to try and get his godhood reinstated, because he's trying to find a loophole in the contract, essentially, because he feels like he doesn't fit in this town. But he gets to know Levi more and more, and kind of Levi weaves his way into Hayden's life. And without even realizing it, Hayden is beginning to really fall for Levi. At its core, this book is very much about queer joy and finding your person and finding your place in the world. I wanted to give Hayden the biggest hug all of the time, because he is just so lost. Like, he hasn't been able to find his purpose outside of who he previously was as Hades. He's not connected with his brothers, who do make an appearance in this book, and if they get books of their own, I would not be opposed to that, because they were hilarious. Hayden is also followed by kind of remnants of his Hades persona, which is these shadows that kind of just follow him around and kind of have a mind of their own. They're basically like a cat in terms of indicating how Hayden is feeling, and the shadows really like Levi. So that's really fun. There is soup, there is caretaking. It is just honestly one of my favorite books that I've read in this first half of the year, and I'm so glad that I read it for this readathon. I also read Heartsong by S.E. Wendel, which is the gargoyle romance, which is technically a grotesque romance because Frey, the gargoyle character, is a grotesque, not a gargoyle. It's a thing. I know the difference. We are following a museum worker, Anna, who works at a special collection, like a private collection of grotesques. And she has always felt this affinity for one of the grotesques there, which turns out to be Frey, who she meets when people break in trying to steal some of these grotesques, and she happens to touch Frey and he comes to life because she is his fated mate. The second half of this book I really enjoyed a lot more. The first half, though, is very much, I talked about this in the reading sprints because that's when I was reading it. The first part of the book is really just a lot of Anna goes to work, Anna comes home, and Frey is stuck in the apartment because he can't leave because he's a grotesque, he doesn't fit in the world. Also, he's missing and they would think that she has stolen him. He also turns back into a statue when it is daytime and comes to life at night. There's some really cool concepts. I just don't feel like it was executed in a way that works for me in terms of the fact that it just felt really slow. Really interesting premise, the last little bit where we get more information about the Fae and how these grotesques came to be, because there's more grotesques that can turn into humans, etc. Like, it just, some of that was really interesting, but it came too late in the book for me, and I don't think I would continue the series. Nothing wrong with the book. The writing was fine, just the way that it was executed wasn't something that works for me. I also read One Heart by Chace Verity. Finally, this has been on my TBR for absolutely ages. This is the story of Vincent and Kit. We have a non-binary bartender who meets a new bartender who is the son of a very wealthy family who basically has left his family, has been kicked out, possibly for disagreeing with their ideology, possibly because he is gay. And Kit kind of weaves his way into Vincent's life because Vincent is quite grumpy, doesn't typically want to mix with the other people at their workplace, but Kit kind of weaves his way in. After they have a moment, and Vincent has experienced some really difficult breakups in the past, which leaves them very reluctant to engage in anything new. They have a moment, and then Kit doesn't turn up to work the next day, and then he doesn't turn up for weeks after that. And then Vincent finds Kit again, except Kit has a hole in his chest and is dead. And as it turns out, Vincent may or may not be a necromancer. He never knew about this. He happens to have a pendant from his parents, which is symbolic of this ability. And so a lot of the book is Vincent learning about his past, learning about how his abilities work. Not hugely, it's not one of those montage learning skills, but they do need to figure out, you know, how this all works. There are demons, there are ghosts, Kit is a zombie, zombies eat ghosts, delightful twist. Honestly, it was just a very cozy Chace Verity time, which I will always appreciate. I also read Ness by Eryn, which is an story in her Wet and Wild series. This one I tried the first chapter of in my try chapter video. It is set in Scotland. It is basically a writer called Grayson who ends up staying near Loch Ness because he's trying to rediscover his passion for writing. He happens to wander into a Loch Ness monster museum, meets the guy that runs it, ends up being talked into going on a Loch Ness monster hunt on the lake, and then finds that he really kind of can't stay away from Hamish. He quite enjoys his company. He has some delightful debates with Hamish about whether or not the Loch Ness Monster is real, and then maybe figures out that maybe actually the Loch Ness Monster is real, and maybe she's not a she, maybe he's a he, and maybe there's been more than one over time. Maybe they happen to have the ability to shift into humans. It is a fun, very short, I think it's only just over 200 pages long, and it was highly entertaining. And then the final book that I read was A Breath of Fresh Air by Allegra. This is kind of a spin-off novella connected to another book which I had my eye on when it first came out. Honestly, I'm just happy that I read the novella. It is set in New Zealand. It is about Amaya, whose daughter is getting married. Her daughter happens to be half wolf shifter, and so the wedding is full of wolf shifters and werewolves, and that there is a difference between the two of them. There she meets Brett, who is an Australian. Is he a werewolf or a wolf shifter? I can never remember. No, he's a wolf shifter. He happens to be there, and he is immediately attracted to Amaya. But they live in different places. And through the course of the novella, their paths cross a couple of times, and they decide, you know what, we're attracted to one another. Let's have some fun. They're both, I think, in their 40s or their 50s, and they end up making this long distance relationship work until the long distance no longer works for them, and they want to have something more permanent. We also find out that Brett is a single dad. He has a good relationship with the mother of his daughter. Part of what's keeping him where he is, why he can't move, is because they have their custody arrangement regarding his daughter. And I like how that discussion was handled. And it's always nice reading books set in New Zealand and or Australia because they just ring so true to me in terms of lived experience, even if they're a paranormal story. So that was really fun. I just realized I haven't had anything to drink. I made the tea and the tea has been sitting there the entire time I've been talking. I didn't even show you. I'm back in my mug because I'm tired. Alrighty, so that is everything that I read for the Love in the Night readathon, which is really fun. I always like diving into paranormal romance books, but again, I'm such a mood reader at the moment that I just need to break it up with other things, so stay tuned, that video is coming. In terms of books that I will be reading in the upcoming week, I think I talked about this last week, I've started Astronomy Sky Country by Carly Noon and Crystal Di Napoli. I'm hoping to read a little bit more of this week. I'm also in the middle of an audiobook, The Genius of Trees by Harriet, which I'm enjoying. Next week is release week over here in Australia, so, well, traditionally published release week, so I have a few things that I will probably be getting to, a couple of middle grade and a couple of adult titles. There is The Wild Unknown by Emily Gale, which was sent to me by Text Publishing. Anna Whateley's Tearing Myself Together from Allen and Unwin. I also have Where There's Smoke by Carly Lane from NetGalley, which is being published by Allen and Unwin, and also We Burn So Bright by TJ Klune. And this was sent to me by Padmac. So hopefully, definitely these will get read. Hopefully I get to the Carly Lane book, and I would like to finish off my audiobook, etc. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of the books that I have? Feel free to chat to me about them down below, or feel free to share something that you read for the Love in the Night readathon. I'd love to hear about it. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave any kind of paranormal themed emoji. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.